Hey everybody, it's Kathy. Welcome to episode 19 of Mondays on the Mat. I'm coming to you live from my office/yoga room. And today we have a really awesome question I'm so excited to answer for you. Before I dive into that, I wanted, for those of you who don't know me very well, to let you know I've been a student of yoga for 21 years. I've been a teacher of yoga for 11 years. And in the 10 years before I became a teacher of yoga, I was a teacher of elementary school. So if you could say or ask if there were two things that I was most passionate about in life, it would be yoga and teaching. And so I get really excited when people have questions about yoga because it's an opportunity for me to dive into the two things I'm most passionate and excited about. I'd love to invite you to join the conversation by adding your questions and comments either here live or later here on Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel, so we can answer any more questions that you have about yoga either here or in an upcoming episode of Mondays on the Mat. Today's question comes from Debbie, and she wants to know, what am I supposed to be thinking about during shavasana? And for those of you who aren't real familiar with shavasana or the Sanskrit words, that's that final relaxation that comes at the end of class when you're lying flat on your back on the mat and you're supposed to just be laying there. So what I'm going to do today is explain to you what shavasana means, what you're supposed to be doing during it, and then what you can do to help you find that state of shavasana, because really the thinking part is the hardest part about shavasana. So first of all, the word shavasana is a combination of two Sanskrit words. The first part is shava, which is spelled S-A-V-A, and that means a corpse. And then the second part is asana, which means pose. So shavasana means corpse pose. And what we're trying to do in corpse pose is imitate a corpse, which means that we're lying still, there's no motion, and our mind is also still, meaning having no thoughts. So what we're really technically supposed to be thinking about in shavasana is nothing. And now that we all kind of can agree is the hardest part, because sometimes shavasana comes around and we're like, oh my God, what's for dinner after class? I'm so starving, or my feet are so cold and I'm really uncomfortable. Oh, and blah, 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 that person who called me yesterday. And all of a sudden, even though our body is still, our mind isn't still. So I'm going to give you some tools and techniques that you can use to hopefully help your mind become more still during shavasana. And the benefit of that is when both your physical body and your mind is still, but you're not asleep. That's the key, right? Sometimes we get nice and still and then we fall asleep. But if you can be still in your body, still in your mind, and not fall asleep, that is the most incredibly refreshing and renewing and restoring aspect of a yoga practice. It's where your body can heal and integrate and renew itself. So the more care and attention we give to shavasana, the more all of the stuff that led up to it becomes even more beneficial. So first of all, what you can do during your asana portion while you're moving around and doing whatever you're doing with your body, depending on the style and the type of class, is to start to focus your mind. And there's two great ways you can focus your mind. One is to really pay attention to what you're feeling in your body. Listen carefully to what your instructor is asking you to do, and do that with as much care and diligence as you can. And not get caught up into telling yourself stories like, oh, I can't do that, I totally suck, my shoulders are too tight, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just feel. Feel what a tight shoulder feels like, or feel the version of the pose that you're in and know that that version is perfect for you on that day, so that you can just be there and feel it. And then the second thing is when you're doing your asana, you're moving around, is to keep your eyes really steady and still. So our eyes are directly hardwired into our brain. And when our eyes are jumping around and moving all over the place, our mind tends to be jumping around and moving all over the place also. So while you're doing your asana, if you can keep your eyes pretty steady, maybe they move from one gazing point to another as you shift through your practice. But if they can stay really steady, your mind is going to start to get steady and prepare you for a shavasana that has less of the racing thoughts. Okay, so that's what you can do during asana time. And then when shavasana rolls around, I feel like there are a couple of key components that can contribute to a more successful, not only quiet body, but quiet mind. The first part that I think is really important is that you're comfortable. If your body is in any way experiencing discomfort, you're going to probably end up thinking, I'm so uncomfortable, my back hurts, my feet are cold, my shoulders, blah, blah, blah. And so you're not going to get that quiet mind. So by setting yourself up comfortably, if the low back is bothering you, roll up a blanket or place a bolster under your calves and knees, and that usually takes the pressure off of your back. And that's normally the number one complaint of discomfort during shavasana. But if you're experiencing any other discomfort in the physical body, like your shoulders feel tight or your neck is uncomfortable, always feel free to invite your instructor over and ask him or her to help you get physically comfortable so that you can lie still. The next aspect of comfortable is body temperature. So when we lie still, our body temperature is going to drop. And in the summer months when it's really hot outside, that might feel good and welcome. But at other times not only that, but at other times it might start to feel too cold, as if the air conditioning is running during the summer. So you're going from kind of warm and sweaty and then sort of cold. That can sort of jolt your mind out of shavasana. So you want to either add some clothing layers, put on socks if your feet tend to get cool, or open up a blanket and cover yourself with a blanket so that your body stays warm enough that, again, you can be comfortable and your mind can get quiet. The next part that I call is comforting, which is different than comfortable. And these are some aspects that can comfort the physical body into a little bit of a deeper place of stillness. My number one favorite, most important thing I think everyone should do during shavasana is use an eye pillow. Now, you can always roll up a towel or a t-shirt or whatever you've got handy to cover your eyes, but there's something special about an eye pillow that like a towel or a t-shirt doesn't have. So an eye pillow has weight to it, and when you place it over your eyes, not only is it blocking out the light, it's got that weight to it that sort of sinks down onto the eyes, and it makes it easier for your eyes to be still inside their sockets. And as I said earlier, if your eyes are dancing all over the place, your mind is dancing all over the place. And so if you've got your eye pillow and that weight is on your eyes and kind of encouraging your eyes to be still, there is a higher likelihood that your mind is going to be still and quiet. And I rarely do shavasana personally without an eye pillow, and I can tell the difference when I don't. I'm less able to slide into that really deep, still place. So comforting eye pillow. Now, another way that you could find a sense of comforting is to use a blanket not for warmth, but for comfort. Yeah, there you go. Hi, Karen. Nice to see you, first of all. But yeah, using the eye pillow, it's the weight of it that makes the hugest difference, not the light part of it. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention, depending on what kind of eye pillow you use, some of them have like lavender and whatnot. Mine, I'm not an ambassador and I'm not getting paid to make this recommendation, but mine are by a company called Barefoot, and they have lavender in them. And that sort of aromatherapy aspect also helps you relax. So I'm glad you commented, Karen, because it reminded me to say that. So going on to the next aspect of comforting is not necessarily the warmth of a blanket, but the weight of it. And they've been doing research lately that the weight of a blanket is comforting and it helps you relax deeper. So you can take a blanket, I have to lean back a little, and fold it up into kind of a rectangle shape, or even a skinnier rectangle, and place it for weight over your feet, your hips and pelvis, or your chest. And again, that sense of comforting helps not only the body relax, but the mind relax. And so then you get into a little bit of a more satisfying shavasana that way. So we've got comfortable and comforting. The last thing we want to consider in shavasana to help us find that place where the mind can get still as well as the body is to consider the duration of shavasana. So back in the day, yoga classes were 2 hours long, and then they kind of got shortened down to 90 minutes. And what I've seen over the last 10 years is that 90-minute class has almost universally turned into an hour. You can still find 90-minute classes here and there, but generally we're looking at an hour-long class. And so in an hour-long class, the duration of shavasana is going to be like 2 or 3 minutes. If we're taking 45 seconds to a minute to get comfortable and comforting, then we're talking about being lying still in shavasana for 2 minutes, maybe 3. And what I've seen over my 21 years of practicing and my 11 years of teaching is that in 2 or 3 minutes, we're barely starting to settle down, not only physically into like, oh, I'm safe and I can really fully relax, but the mind is just starting to settle itself down, because even if we've taken all of these steps, it still takes a couple minutes for really everything to calm down. And so in 2 or 3 minutes, most of us haven't even gotten there yet, and now shavasana is over. And so what I've seen is in a 60-minute class with that shorter length of shavasana is that most of us aren't actually experiencing a true deep shavasana of stillness in body and mind. And so in a 90-minute class, now depending on your teacher, you may still only get a 3 or 4 or 5 minute shavasana up to maybe 7 minutes. And again, in my 21 years and 11 years of teaching, what I see is that most people cross the barrier into real stillness, real sense of like floating, effortless, not asleepness in somewhere in that 5 to 7 minute range. And so if shavasana is between 5 and 7 minutes, we're just beginning to taste it. And then we feel pretty good about our shavasana because we did get to the place where the mind is quiet, but it wasn't really experienced over a duration of time. And so if we can take that shavasana and move it up to 10 to maybe even 12 minutes, then what's happening is we're getting there in that 5 to 7 minute range and then experiencing it for a duration of a few minutes. And that's what makes shavasana end up feeling really refreshing, really restorative, really renewing, and like it actually happened. And then depending on personal preferences, I've also seen somewhere in the 13 to 15 minute range is better for some people. And for some people, like 10 to 12 minutes max is all that they need. So in my 90-minute classes that I teach, I shoot for 10 minutes in shavasana. That means I'm giving people a little bit of time to get set and comfortable, comforted, and then the time to drop in and be in. So duration, I think, really makes a huge difference in the experience of shavasana. So you might look at the classes that you're taking and ask the teacher, if you don't know, how long was shavasana today? And think about your experience, and was it long enough for you to get all of the benefits of shavasana, which is that stillness where the renewal and the healing and the repair for the body actually occur. So that's my answer to your question. What should you be thinking about during shavasana? Technically nothing. And some things that you can do to help yourself get there. If you've got questions about shavasana, nope, we did shavasana, but there could be more questions about shavasana, and I'm totally open to answering them. I love answering questions. So if you've got more you want to know about shavasana, totally put that down there in the comments. Or if you've got questions about any other aspect of yoga, even if you think think it's weird and bizarre, you're probably not the only person wondering that. So please ask me and I will answer you on an upcoming episode of Mondays on the Mat. Join me live in class this week, ladies. We're doing a little bit of everything. It feels so like everybody's loving classes this month. Tuesday 6:30 to 8, Wednesday 5:30 to 7, Friday 9:30 to 11, and Saturday 9 to 10:30 a.m. Starting in July, I'm going to have an opening for an ongoing private lesson. If you'd rather work at your own pace, please hit me up for that ongoing spot before it gets taken. It seems like, guys, every time a spot opens up, somebody nabs it right away. So if you want that to be you, please contact me and we'll get you all set up. Have a beautiful rest of your Monday. If you missed the beginning of this episode, I'm going to post it and you can go back and watch the rest of it. I've also got a YouTube channel that you can go back and watch previous episodes of Mondays on the Mat. So thanks again for tuning in. Have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you and answering your questions next week. Namaste.